Being a rock star can be as dangerous as it is glamorous, and no one knows that better than these music icons. From heartbreaking addiction spirals to terrifying road accidents, these are the rock stars who have come closest to giving up the ghost. Sleaze metal champions Motley Crüe were near the height of their popularity in 1987. The group had just released their fourth album, Girls, 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 to multi-platinum success, and had embarked on an equally successful and completely debauched world tour in support of the album's release. Of course, things behind the scenes were a little less glamorous than those corny 80s hair metal videos would have you believe. Nikki Sixx, the Crue's founder, bassist, and chief songwriter, was battling a vicious heroin addiction at the time, which he detailed in his 2007 book, The Heroin Diaries, A Year in the Life of a Shattered Rock Star. But one incident stands out in particular and has gone on to become one of the most notable stories in rock history. In December of that year, while partying with Guns N' Roses Slash and Steven Adler in Los Angeles, Sixx overdosed on heroin and briefly died before being revived in the ambulance. The experience with twin life-saving adrenaline needles inspired him to write one of the group's biggest hits, 1989's Kickstart My Heart. As if Blink-182's ongoing indefinite hiatus hadn't made 2008 bad enough for Travis Barker, the legendary drummer nearly died when the Learjet 60 business jet he was traveling on crashed and burned following a failed aborted takeoff. After bursting out its tires, the plane ran past the runway, smashed through a boundary fence, crossed a highway, and then burst into flames on an embankment. 4 of the 6 people on board, including the pilot, died on the scene, and fellow passenger DJ AM died of an overdose the following year. Only Barker himself lives to tell the tale. Barker discussed the immediate aftermath of the crash on the Joe Rogan Experience in early 2019.
I was in such a hurry to get out of the plane and exit the plane, I jumped right into the jet, which is full of fuel. So my whole body lit up.
To this day, Barker won't go near an airplane, choosing to stay home if Blink-182 are heading to a place he can't access by boat. Honestly, it's hard to blame him. It's hard to be much more self-destructive than the members of Guns N' Roses were at the height of their popularity in the early 90s. And top-hatted guitar hero Slash is arguably the most infamous addict in the band, consisting almost entirely of infamous addicts, any one of whom could have easily died during their heyday. Just ask bassist Duff McKagan, whose pancreas exploded due to alcohol abuse, or drummer Steven Adler, whose addictions nearly killed him with a stroke. While touring in support of the Use Your Illusion double album, Slash bought every bit of a dealer's stash of heroin and retired to shoot it all up in his San Francisco hotel room. Speaking to The Guardian, Slash later recalled, "I started down the hallway and I ran into a maid, and I asked where the elevator was, and then bam, I collapsed." Slash flatlined and luckily was able to be revived by paramedics. What happened next probably isn't all that surprising. As Slash explains, "They took me to the hospital, but I said I'm fine, signed myself out, went back to the hotel, and we flew to the next gig." Rock stars encounter plenty of dangers during their lives, but routine knee surgery doesn't usually make the list. But Queens of the Stone Age frontman Josh Homme put it simply to NME, "I had surgery on my leg and there were complications and I died on the table. I was in bed for 3 months." Speaking to Rolling Stone, he went into even further detail. "I was stuck in a room for 4 months and I had all these tubes in my leg, and it was painful." But being cleared by doctors and discharged wasn't the end of the ordeal. Homme still thinks the greatest challenge was the psychological damage he endured in the aftermath of his surgery. In his own words, "The physical scars heal quick, it's the mental ones that are tougher." However, Homme has since cited the ordeal as an experience that zeroed him, saying, "And I'm really thankful for it because I know what's important." Often, bad overdoses can act as wake-up calls to addicts, and that's exactly what happened to Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins, who OD'd on heroin in 2001 and was left in a 2-week coma that nearly ended the band. Speaking to NME, Hawkins said, "There was a year where the partying just got a little too heavy. Thank God on some level this guy gave me the wrong line with the wrong thing one night and I woke up going, what the f*** happened? That was a real changing point for me." After his overdose, frontman Dave Grohl briefly played with Queens of the Stone Age, something Hawkins mistook as a sign he had ruined the band. He explained, "It really looked like the end. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. Hawkins and Grohl remain as close as ever. The band continues to play, and Hawkins himself has been clean for years." Metallica's Wherever We May Roam tour comfortably overlapped with Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion tour, so the two titans decided to join forces for a handful of appearances at a number of American stadiums. Unfortunately, the tour is now widely seen as a catastrophe, largely due to the excesses and chronic tardiness of GNR's Axl Rose. The troubles came to a head on August 8, 1992, when Metallica frontman James Hetfield, confused about the stage layout, wandered right into a pyrotechnic blast during Fade to Black and was left with severe burns.
Pyro guy doesn't see me that I've walked back out there. A big colored flame goes right up under me.
The band cut the set short as James was rushed to the hospital, but the story gets even crazier. Tour promoters frantically called Guns management, who agreed to start their set early to appease a disappointed crowd. However, citing a failure to properly switch over the sound settings, Rose cut the set early and caused a massive riot. As Hetfield later said, "I go and light myself on fire and he upstages me." Texas groove titans Pantera may have almost single-handedly kept metal alive in the 90s, but it came at the cost of some members' own well-being. To this day, fans remain heartbroken over Dimebag Darrell Abbott's onstage killing in 2004 and his brother Vinnie Paul's death from heart disease in 2018. But although many are aware that frontman Phil Anselmo battled heroin addiction in the latter half of the band's heyday, not everyone knows that he briefly died of an overdose. After a show in Dallas in 1996, Anselmo shot up, as was his routine, and promptly slipped into cardiac arrest for 4 to 5 minutes. He summarized the events in a press conference a few days after being discharged. The star said, "I, Philip H. Anselmo, injected a lethal dose of heroin into my arm and died for 4 to 5 minutes." Anselmo later told Endeavoro, "Make no mistake, I have died before, there's no faking death." Interestingly, Anselmo's back problems were the cause of both his addiction and his recovery. When he finally found time to undergo surgery in 2005, he had to kick the habit before going under. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. He's been sober ever since. Of all the narcotic, hedonistic ways the Prince of Darkness has flirted with death over the years, it's hard to believe a simple ATV accident came just about as close as anything else to doing him in. Ozzy Osbourne, who was 55 at the time of the December 2003 incident, decided to head out on a joyride across his estate outside London. It didn't go so well. Osbourne crashed the vehicle, was rushed to the emergency room, and underwent extensive surgery to treat a myriad of injuries. His son Jack summarized them to reporters: a broken collarbone, 8 fractured ribs that were pinching crucial blood vessels, and a damaged vertebrae in his neck. British pop metal pioneers Def Leppard are known as much for their one-armed drummer as they are for their decade-defining hit songs. But just how did Rick Allen lose his arm? On New Year's Eve 1984, Allen was driving his girlfriend around the outskirts of his native Sheffield when he lost control of his Corvette. The car then smashed into a field and launched Allen from the driver's seat, severing his left arm and leaving his girlfriend with severe whiplash and a handful of broken bones. Doctors did manage to reattach the arm, but an infection forced them to amputate it for good. But the story of how Allen overcame his condition is even more remarkable than the incident itself.
When I finally came round after my accident, I was sort of saying to her, "It's okay, you know, things will be fine, don't worry about it."
Unwilling to consider retiring from one of music's then biggest acts, Allen built a drum set in which parts normally played by the left arm would be played by the left foot.
He'd been practicing on the edge of the bed with a pillow. He said, "Well, I've lost my left arm, so I'm going to use my left foot."
Allen went on to master the custom-built kit in time for the band's 1987 Titanic hit single-packed album Hysteria, and the rest is history. Rock fans might remember Creed vocalist Scott Stapp's bizarre 2014 mental breakdown in which he filmed himself in his truck hiding out from unspecified predators. It later came out that Stapp was enduring frightening hallucinations brought on by methamphetamine psychosis. Luckily, he got help and has been clean and sober ever since. But that was far from the first time he'd experienced a near brush with death. In a 2012 GQ interview, rapper T.I. recalled hearing pained moaning coming from a hotel balcony above him. He saw a wounded man attempting to continue his jump after the 6th floor broke his attempted 14-story drop. The man, who T.I. later realized was Creed's Scott Stapp, was spinning an intoxicated tale about how his girlfriend was cheating on him with his best friend. The rapper ultimately coaxed him down by offering him a joint in exchange for letting him call the authorities. Longtime Poison frontman Bret Michaels apparently never noticed when his band's heyday faded away because his hard partying continued well into the 90s. Sadly, it all came to a head in 1994 when he wrapped his Ferrari around a telephone pole and nearly died as a result. He wound up with several broken bones, including his jaw, his nose, several fingers, and a few ribs. In an interview with Houston Press, the Every Rose Has Its Thorn singer claimed he was heading to an after-party after a rager with actor Chris Penn when the accident occurred. He said, "I was just hauling ass and lost control of the car. That's pretty much it. And just thank God that I didn't hurt anyone but myself." Korn frontman Jonathan Davis has endured several health scares over the course of his life, and they started at a young age, too. As a kid, Davis suffered from severe asthma that landed him in the emergency room on a number of occasions. In a 2004 interview with Livewire, after stating that his upbringing had been pretty terrible, he was asked if there had been any good parts. Davis responded, just staying alive. I was really sick as a kid. I almost died. I don't know how many times. I was in and out of the hospital so many times with really bad asthma." Years later, Davis found himself back in the hospital. He later explained, "I started getting these weird bruises all over my body about 2 weeks ago. I was getting very weak after the show, so I saw a doctor in London Friday. He took some blood tests, and when the results came in, they rushed me to the hospital." Davis, it turned out, was suffering from immune thrombocytopenic purpura. In his own words, ITP is a blood infection where, because of an allergic reaction I had to some medication, my blood platelets were really low. If I continued to headbang on stage, I could have had a brain hemorrhage and dropped dead on the spot. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, 8255.